Now, thank you. Now, the purpose of today's session is to do three things, is to launch and disseminate our findings on our new study on the extent of TFGBV integration within law and journalism curriculum in Kenyan universities. Also, we are here to highlight the implications of technology-facilitated gender-based violence for professional preparedness, whereby we are looking into particularly the future of lawyers and the media practitioners. There's also the issue where we are going to look into how can we have better coordinated strategies and intervention to ensure that we strengthen education, awareness, and responses to TFGBVs in Kenya. So this webinar is also forms parts of the global commemoration of the 16 days of activism. Uh, we are against gender-based violence under the theme Unite to End Violence Against All Women and Girls. It is also very timely for us because it reflects on how our education institutions can contribute to addressing digital harms, supporting survivors, and building a safer online environment for all. So allow me to briefly outline our program for today. We will begin with a keynote address from our very own CEO, Dr. Grace Githaiga. Thereafter, will be followed by presentations of the various study findings, which will be done by Michael. And after that, the next thing that will come will be a panel discussion to discuss, whereby distinguished speakers will discuss the various takes on these topics. And finally, we'll have an interactive Q&A session with all the participants. We are truly honored to have you with us here today and our esteemed panelists and attendees who are experts. We are truly happy to engage with you today in this conversation, and we appreciate and say thank you for joining us. So at this moment, I'd like to take this opportunity to welcome uh, Dr. Grace Githaiga. I think she's in the room so that she can give us the keynote address as we begin this webinar. Thank you. Dr. Grace?
Good morning, Neema. Good morning, everyone. Uh, apologies for joining in late. I was having challenges joining, but here I am. Please allow me not to use my camera because I am also at a place that I'm not in a position to use the camera, but I just want to thank everyone for joining in, and to just say that as we launch this report, we thought as Kictonet that we have been doing a lot of work on TFGBV. And in our conversations, we did, we discussed and raised the issue of whether if, people were taught as part of the curriculum on ways of, avoiding TFGBV, on ways of raising awareness of TFGBV, whether that would contribute to reduction in TFGBV cases. As you have seen recently, there's actually a trend that has emerged where when somebody dies, uh, you know, people use that death to create content. And so some of it is not good content. And the question is, does it fall within TFGBV? So as we did this, we assessed a couple of universities' curriculum, and the researcher will be talking about it, to just look, curriculums for journalism schools and law schools to check on whether they have frameworks or whether in their curriculum they have components of this. And we thought it was very important because TFGBV cases rely on digital evidence, it's either screenshots, it's IP addresses, and this requires specialized knowledge to collect and preserve and even present in court. So what is the task or what is the role of future lawyers and even judges? Um, we thought it would be important that we highlight this, that there's need to provide them with training on issues such as jurisdiction, on issues such as data protection and privacy, on issues such as anonymity. So I think one of the areas is that we also, for legal for law schools, that it is important for legal professions to understand the psychological and social impacts of TFGBV, to avoid re-victimization. And so, if the curriculum takes care of that, and it has an approach that ensures, there is that, gender TFGBV, gender responsive lens, it would be good. And sometimes people don't realize that there is a gap or there is need for training. And therefore, we thought as thought leaders at Kictanet, as people who do work, get into waters that are the uncharted waters, that we need to highlight this. For journalism school, media is critical. Media is still important in this country. Media still is used, to either not just report, inform, and entertain, but media sets the agenda. And therefore, as journalists, journalism students, what would that entail to just start, um, uh, pushing for awareness on TFGBV? Would they be able to then set that agenda? And therefore, this is why we have this meeting, because apart from, it's very important also to understand all the disinformation that is being shared through TFGBV. And therefore, we look forward to your views on this publication. We look forward to hearing what your experiences are as either, journalism students or even law students, and what you think of the findings. So asanteni sana, I just want to welcome you again, and to say that we are so glad that you have decided to join us in this meeting. Back to you, Neema. Is Neema here? Can somebody confirm if I can be heard?
Yes, you are loud and clear.
Okay, thank you so much. So where is Neema? Indeji, I think you should just take over. She might have dropped off.
Thank you, Daktari. So, thank you for your remarks as to what actually inspired us to undertake that particular research, because because of how things are emerging, specifically for law schools, and the aspect of do we need a curriculum that is mandatory, or do we have do universities or learning institutions churn out students who are ready to address TFGBV professionally, or it's just the way you just mentioned that they're using certain scenarios for clout chasing, and then that aspect of perhaps our students having trust issues within the systems, meaning their self-esteem goes down, raising to lack of confidence in the university reporting mechanism, in as much as we know within the workplace, especially in the corporate sector, private sector, public spaces, we have these policies that really encourage people to adhere to certain policies, certain norms and practices of how to address themselves, how to behave themselves, and how also to report when they feel their environment is not safe for them. So I think after Nema had mentioned that
Yes, Indeja, I'm back.
okay, after Daktari's keynote, there will be our researcher to take us through. So Nima, I will kindly hand over back to you, and thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you, Indeja, and thank you for proceeding. I can see Michael is in the room. Michael is part of, has been at the forefront of this research on exploring TFGBV educations in law and journalism, the curricula in Kenya. And I want to take this opportunity to just invite him in to give us the findings of the study, what was most practical to the existing media in the legal professionals, and who did the study go to. Based on the study, what are the top three recommendations of the study as well? So, Michael?
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Allow me a moment to set up my PowerPoint, just a minute.
All right, thank you.
I believe it's visible.
Yes, we can see it. It's clear.
Oh, okay, thank you. My name is Michael Kenboy. I'm a researcher, and it was a very interesting experience to engage in this research on TFGBV integration in law and journalism curricula with internet. So when we talk about TFGBV, which is technology facilitated gender-based violence, it is easy to lose. It is really easy to lose it in the terms such as cyber stalking. You can lose the term in you can lose the meaning of TFGBV in terms such as cyber stalking, doxing, digital harassment, but not really knowing what it really entails. You find that young women, journalists, students, and so many vulnerable groups, they are victims to technology facilitated gender-based violence. There are real cases, like in 2025, there's a case of a lady, not her real name, Mweni, also a university student. These incidences of cyberbullying started on Instagram, then followed by anonymous messages on WhatsApp, threatening to leak private conversation, photos. Then within weeks, it spread to Telegram. There were circulations of doctored images of her with demeaning comments. And you can imagine even before the real issue is at hand, before even people realize these are not facts, but are just falsifications, doctored images using AI, the damage is already done. There is severe emotional distress and also some form of social stigma. Therefore, given this context, this study seeks to understand how well universities are preparing law and journalism students to respond to this evolving form of violence that manifests largely online. So basically, the key study objectives were on assessing the TFGBV curriculum integration levels in both law and journalism, to identify some of the drivers manifestation and the incidences in Kenyan universities, and also to look at also to evaluate the effectiveness. Some of the measures that have been put in place, how effective are they? And in conducting this research, it was done in 20 public and private universities, equally distributed, 10 public, 10 private. And also the research involved student surveys, which were done digitally. There was also key informant interviews with the legal professionals and senior editors, as well as lecturers. And there was a curriculum audit tool that was utilized to analyze the curricula, to look at the content of TFGBV. Is it present? If it is present, what is the breadth? If there are subtopics on TFGBV in this curricula of journalism and law, is there assessment for the same? And are there learning outcomes in regards to TFGBV? So in line with the specific objectives, one of the core objectives was looking at the integration patterns of TFGBV content or studies within the law and journalism curricula. There were 4 metrics or scores that were put in place. The presence, it used a graduated scale from 0 to 4. The more present TFGBV content is within a curriculum, the more scores are given institution, or a law program would get more points. So for 0, it's no presence. For 1, there's slightly more in terms of mention of topics. Then there's also breadth. Looks at, with this mention, are there maybe subtopics relating to TFGBV? And then assessments. Are students examined on issues regards to TFGBV? Are there case studies and the like? And also looking at the learning outcomes. If you look at the course outlines, are there specific learning outcomes with regards to TFGBV? What are the expectations for the learners? What are they expected to achieve or to gain at the end of learning? So when we look at the integration patterns, as I mentioned earlier, it looks at the presence. When you look at the slide, the purple, the dark purple, the dark purple, this is for the law curriculum. So you find it only captured in terms of presence and breadth, but in terms of assessment, you find only the journalism program was able to have a bit of assessment in terms of TFGBV. So overall, you find that the law programs for the targeted universities, they had a score of 4 out of 16, which is indicative of minimal integration of TFGBV within the curricula. Same for the journalism curriculum. So for law, you could see it appear in units such as gender and the law, ICT law, criminal law, and media law. Then journalism, which had a bit of breadth, you could see it indirectly in units, core units regarding online journalism. There's also media law and ethics. There's also digital journalism and also gender and communication. So these were how the extent to which TFGBV was integrated within the specific programs. And just by observation, you can tell there's minimal integration of TFGBV. So when you look at the prevalence and manifestation of TFGBV, you find that cyber harassment is the most prevalent form of TFGBV among the students, alongside image-based abuse, as I had made reference to with the case of Mweni. There's also impersonation, there's sexist memes, and cyber stalking. So these manifestations of TFGBV are driven largely by individual, technological, and structural factors, whereby you find individual, you have issues like revenge, there are cases of revenge porn, where previous partners would share maybe explicit photos in form of revenge. Then there's also the social pressure. Someone would share images to appear that they are doing well in life, and they are not really doing well. And this maybe might encourage people maybe to bully. Yeah. So these were some of the key drivers, and technology called the anonymity that internet provides. You can just create accounts, bully people without people really knowing your identity or anything. And there's also the ease of sharing. Like I had shared earlier, you find that for many, it started with Instagram, it went to Telegram, you find it also goes to Facebook. So that the ease of sharing information and also the permanence, it makes the issue really concerning and requires attention to address. And when we look at the while conducting out the digital survey, when we were asking for views from the students in regards to the prevalence, we find that the institutional responses are weak. We find that majority of the students that we interviewed, around 85.3%, they distrust the reporting systems. And there are also a significant number, which is 57%, they are unaware of any preventive measures that are in place in the university set up to address the issues of TFGBV. As much as these preventative measures are in place, but they are not aware. Then there's also something that was common. You find that if you ask a given student maybe if they've experienced TFGBV, where did they experience it, you find that there was a consistent number of around 60%, which they claimed not applicable or gave no response. So this was suggestive. It was suggestive of underreporting and a bit of normalization of online harm. Some students might not know that certain acts constitute TFGBV. That's why you find that it's sort of underreporting on the same. And in terms of now the preparedness, if you look at now the legal aspects, the media, the legal fraternity, the media, the level of preparedness, universities, you find that at the university setup, you find that preparedness is critically low. There's 51.9% reporting of students that claim they are inadequately equipped to address TFGBV professionally. So you find now for law students, they find that they lack the training on digital evidence, cyber harassment litigation, or TFGBV specific legal processes. So the students that are currently pursuing their degree, and you also find that some of those that are practicing, you find that they are in law firms, and they have been able to interact with students maybe on internship attachments. They find that these gaps are prevalent. So when you look at now the journalism students, they lack structured preparation for ethical reporting, digital safety, and some of those platforms that they can use to avoid such instances of TFGBV. In terms of even reporting instances of victims, to also minimize re-traumatization. So the absence of the measurable learning outcomes and assessment, as I mentioned earlier, contribute to some of these gaps that you also see in terms of the responses from the students regarding their preparedness and also preparedness currently and also their career. So when we look at now the multi-stakeholder action, what can stakeholders in place do to address some of these issues that are manifesting in regards to TFGBV, not only at the university setup, also find for journalists, also any other, it could be a public figure, it could be a politician, it could be any other individual. So you find with the gaps that have been identified at the university setup, we require a mandatory standalone TFGBV course so that it can be able to address these emerging issues with the TFGBV, especially with the growth of large language models, whereby people are unable to identify truth from falsifications. And even before the identification is done, in most cases, the damage is already done. So one of the recommendations that we gave, they could utilize now the curriculum audit tool and go through their program and see where they can improve, where they can integrate, where they can increase now the presence of TFGBV. And the good thing about this, even the design of the curriculum is at the discretion of the lecturers in specific universities. So they can even integrate it even before systems are in place to make it mandatory. And you also find at the university setup, you find in terms of the policies, you find there are anti-harassment policies in place. So they need to be reformed in such a way that they are not really punitive and they're in a way that they educate students on the dangers, how they can handle such cases, how they can report, and how they can avoid it entirely. So the faculty, they can adopt trauma-informed learning and teaching framework and embed relevant case studies at the class level, whereby students can be informed of such cases of TFGBV, how they were handled. You can look at it even from the law angle and also from the journalism setup, how it was reported on ethically and how it was litigated on when you look at it from the legal perspective. And in terms of the government, there's need for reform for the Cybercrime Act. You find that even with the current update to the Cyber Crimes Act, you find that those gaps are still there in terms of how TFGBV is handled. So there is that continuous engagement with parties such as Talent, so that they can offer even the expertise and give the way forward on how to fill these gaps in the law and also the curriculum. There's also need to allocate funding for institutional prevention and digital safety initiatives and build now the judicial and police capacity handling TFGBV. And this also came out very clearly during the interviews, especially with lawyers. We find that the police enforcement, they have a big challenge handling such cases, especially because they happen online. The majority of them are just used to maybe sexual violence that happens physically. So you find the way it manifests online, they need that continuous training so that they can prosecute such cases effectively. Then regulators such as the Commission for University Education, the Law Society of Kenya, to start with, the Commission for University Education, they could mandate, they could make it a requirement for law and journalism students to acquire TFGBV competencies before graduating. They could also set the curriculum benchmarks and offer specialized continuous professional development training. This is now for the Law Society of Kenya. And also the students, you find that the students are also very critical in offering advocacy. You find they've been also key in movements such as Campus Me Too, and also giving a voice to the voiceless. So it's also important while all these engagements are taking place, they need to be at the center stage so that they can even contribute more information on the different manifestations of TFGBV and how it can be handled. So the path forward. So what we concluded is that the need for mandatory curriculum. TFGBV needs to be integrated in the curriculum for law and journalism. And also there's that need of support systems, which is survivor-centered reporting channels to build now the trust. As we find that 85.3% of students, they distrust the reporting system. And also there's need now for the legal reforms, and as I had mentioned earlier, to amend the Cyber Crimes Act and also require accreditation to align academic standards with the digital reality. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael, for that elaborate report, illustration, and I think you just went through and got into the panel. And I thought you would have done a bit of justice in your introduction, but I think you're best fit to do that. So I will do it for you as we begin the panel. So I'd like to encourage participants in case you have any questions, just text through our chat box and so that we ensure that everyone is covered. Also, you can use the raise hand emoji, whereby we can be able to assist you. Now, as you've seen on your screens, we have some poll questions. These poll questions help us to identify feedback from you so that we can be able to have better mechanisms in line of addressing the issues of TFGBV. Now, at this point, I'd like to go straight in. We are going to have a panel discussion whereby we have our panelists from media, from the courts, from laws, from the lawyers, to also Michael coming in back. So I'll start by introducing Michael again. Michael is a PhD finalist in public policy at the University of Nairobi. He'll be part of our panelists today. He also holds the Master's in Research and Public Policy from the same university, and he's also an accomplished scholar in publications on ICT, agriculture, and food security. Welcome, Michael. So on the next panelist, we have Jacob. Jacob Nyongesa is a senior researcher, planning strategy at the Media Council of Kenya, bridging a maleficent background with being a seasoned journalist and also a researcher in digital media expert. His career is dedicated to ensure that there is integrity of the media ecosystem, and with a special focus in combating misinformation, disinformation. He also plays a role in ensuring that there's significant contribution in the media information and digital literacy ecosystem. So, Jacob, I hope you can hear me. Karibu sana. Thank you. I can see the thumbs up. Also with us here is Ivy. Ivy is an advocate of the High Court. She's also an experienced researcher. She presently works in areas to deal with litigation. This is inclusive of civil and criminal. And she has been ensuring that human rights and constitutional law have been addressed in terms of ensuring there's proper management in these sectors. She also holds a judicial research managerial position, and she has supported various sectors, including diplomatic missions. She's also done public sectors in terms of research and stakeholder engagements, inclusive of energy, finance, and oil and gas. Welcome, Ivy. I hope you can be able to unmute yourself and hear me. All right. So my first question goes to Jacob. Jacob I hope you can hear me, Jacob. Is he in the room? Okay, so let me just assist. Ivy, can you please try and unmute? Yes, Jacob, I can see you. Asante. So my first question goes to you. In light of these occurrences of tech-facilitated gender-based violence, while looking at the journalists, we do face it a lot. And I just want to understand what are the key challenges we face when it comes to reporting as journalists. Karibu. Jacob, you can unmute and speak. Hello. Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes, now we can hear you.
Good, good. Sorry for those. Sometimes in digital media can be a challenge. Or yeah. So basically, just looking broadly on the issues about the challenges.
Yes.
There are quite a number of challenges that journalists face, and I'll try and see how this marries into what we're discussing. And we're looking at the issues about TFGBV, and TFGBV affects everyone, globally. Whether you're a journalist, whether you're a member of the public, you're a student, and all of us are affected. Now, in this aspect, I think for journalists, uh, you'll notice that they're the same people who are reporting on TFGBV, but at the same time, again, are the ones again being affected. So, and also they are victims. All of us remember during the, and all of us know the definitions of what TFGBV is and the different aspects of it. And remember during the Gen Z protest in 2024, you notice that even journalists were being attacked online, and they had to report about it, and that's for me, it's a very big challenge because, with that continuous attacks on media and journalists, then in a way that, narrative is being created about trying to silence the voices of the I'll say the protectors of the space, and that is a challenge because once journalists are attacked, then the voice about how these scourge continues to affect people will not be heard. And I think for me, that is an area that maybe we need to look into. The other bit is about there's been very limited coverage of TFGBV on our media. And mostly, if it's been covered, then it's been covered with a very, is framed negatively. There are no positive stories that people are telling about TFGBV. There's need for stakeholders to come together and look at how can we be able to develop and create spaces where TFGBV is being reported and given the prominence that it deserves. Sometimes even the media, I'll say, do not cover themselves when they're being attacked on these spaces. And there's need for us to find ways on how can we be able to put this into either curriculum, or how can we be able to tell, the media that when you're faced with a threat, then you can easily report about it. Also, the other bit is about self-censorship. You'll notice that once someone has been attacked, and that is that says that maybe it's a journalist who's been attacked, they'll start censoring themselves, and there are issues that they not report about, and that is a challenge. And that also makes some people not to want to go into reporting about it. So then also that's it's a big challenge because they fear facing backlash, and in a way this impacts on press freedom because when the media now is not reporting objectively or is being timid in terms of reporting about the issues, then it becomes a very big challenge. Talking about laws, laws have been very sometimes infringe on the rights of journalists because again of give an example about the Computer Misuse and Cybercrime Act and how it affects, the media, and even in terms of how they engage online. That's also a big challenge. So there's also need for us to look at what are the laws that are there in the space and how are they impacting on media. And finally, I'll talk about the newsroom support. Most media houses do not provide support for the journalists. There is very little support, and people are just allowed to, either to get into depression. We've seen a few journalists who got into depression because either they were attacked online and no one was able to come in to defend them. And there is need for us to just find ways on how we can be able to have very good editorial guidelines on reporting these issues. So just in a brief, those are the things I'll share about the challenges that, over time I've been able to see happening within the media space.
Thank you so much, Jacob. And coming from you, being at the sector of the Media Council of Kenya, you've been able to do a lot of reporting in regards to what is happening in the media sector, and I'm really uphold in that these issues are still ongoing in terms of similarity in reporting, whereby the victim is facing continuous attacks, but still the one who has to go and report. Also, the issue of negativity in storytelling, whereby the coverage of the media is still, do we need, the question, it begs the question, do we need to, now train more journalists on effective reporting of positive stories when it comes to storytelling? There's also the issue of self-censorship that you've mentioned, whereby issues are timid, where reporting are, someone becomes timid because they want to report, but what they had gone through, even within the reporting mechanisms, have not worked through. Now, this brings me to the legal aspect of it, whereby also, as Jacob mentioned, the infringement of laws and on journalists and rights. And we're not only going to cover here journalists, we're covering the whole ecosystem of everyone, for everyone. So, Ivy, can you please highlight to us what are the current legal frameworks in Kenya that can help us to address TFGBV in light of Jacob's discussion? Thank you. Ivy?
Thank you. I don't know if you can hear me.
Yes, we can hear you clearly.
So the main frameworks are obviously the Constitution. And then second to that, we have the Computer Misuse and Cybercrimes Act. It's been made as a significant steps towards at least framing some of the TFGBV offenses. Then we have the Penal Code, and the Sexual Offences Act and the Children's Act, which covers a lot of the offenses against children. Those are just the main ones. And then we also have the Data Protection Act. So you'll find that the problem is we have almost 12 acts of parliament, plus the constitution, all of which you can apply different offenses of TFGBV. And the challenge with that is it's so fragmented. So you'll find, for example, if someone goes to the police, the charge sheet might be different. You'll find that TFGBV cases are not going to be the main offense. They will prefer a different offense instead of TFGBV normally. So there's a lot of fragmentation with regards to the legislation that applies to TFGBV, and that causes gaps and incoherence in application of the law. And also, like in terms of precedents, if you even try and find cases, you will not online, for example, in Kenya law today, you will not find that many reported cases, because first, many are not brought to conclusion, but you also find there's just no consistency. So I think even the main TFGB case we have is a constitutional law petition. And you can imagine this is a high court case. And then now we go into the issues of accessibility. Anyway, yeah, basically that's what the framework looks like at the moment. I hope I've answered the question.
Yes, Ivy, and just so that we make things clear for our audience is, you've been working in this law field for quite a long time. And I just wanted you to get into why do we face these non-prioritized cases, especially in court systems, and when we go to the police station, why is it that when we are reporting these issues, it is not taken as a priority? Also, you've mentioned the terms of incoherence of applications of this law. Why is it that, why is it happening towards, this having, you've mentioned over 7, the Constitution of Kenya, the Computer Misuse and Cyber Crimes Act. Why isn't this taking, a charge towards, addressing TFGBV, the laws that are there? Why is it not happening? So I think you can get into that a bit, because these are the type of questions we do get while we are training women at KECTANET, and also just to ensure it is understood. Thank you.
Okay, so I'd say generally, even gender-based violence cases are not taken seriously, and that's offline. I'm not saying it's a measure of offense, but when it comes to now TFGBB, there's just so much more trivialization. They'll tell you, people like I'm sure you've had insights from researchers. You'd have people being asked, "Oh, just log out." "Oh, why did you have to talk to him?" "Oh, why did you have to send him photos?" There's a lot of victim blaming. There's a lot of societal norms and stigma with regards to the field. Yeah, that's the main thing. That's the other thing. And then also just a kind of a sense of it not being so real or so close to home. A kind of like how do you say it? A lack of recognition of how permanent some of these offenses are. You literally, the spread is also quite high. You find people who've seen for example, certain images of someone that they've never met, that they'll never meet. I mean, it's, yeah, just a lack of appreciation for just the magnitude of suffering or the magnitude of the issues.
Thank you so much, Ivy. And I'm glad you've answered it like that, because something we've realized is this TFGBV is not considered real harm, especially in the spaces that we are right now. It's considered something very foreign, something far-fetched. And you've even gone to the reaching out to researchers, of which today we are privileged to have a researcher in the room. So I want to ask him, is it right that they tell people to log out? So my question goes to our researcher, Michael. What are the practical proposals that you have had in existing media in light of the research you've done? We are legal professionals who did not study TFGBV in Kenya. What are the practical proposals? And just as Ivy has mentioned, is logging out a proposal? Michael?
Logging out is definitely not a proposal because it will sort of create an ecosystem, but the same manifestations of TFGBV continue to occur. So, basing on the research with the gaps that have been established, for those that have not undergone the training at the university level, what's next? The good thing now for the law and also the media programs, we have the Law Society of Kenya. They could establish a mandatory continuous professional development modules on TFGBV. And now the key thing is to make this mandatory, not optional, because when it is not made mandatory, it won't be prioritized unless it is required. So the key thing is to make it mandatory, to have these continuous professional development modules. Then it should cover these aspects that have been established in terms of gaps in TFGBV. These aspects that students or even the legal professionals or other stakeholders have gaps in. Issues to do with cyber law. How do you collect now this digital evidence? How do you preserve it? Because Once someone harasses someone online, they can just delete the comments. What happens in such cases? And now for the Media Council, they need to have now the specialized certification programs on digital safety. Even if you look at the website of Media Council of Kenya, they could even provide toolkits on secure communication, platform-specific safety measures, and also how to ethically report on cases of TFGBV, because you're reporting on victims. And another key thing, stakeholders such as Kitanet, they need to be involved in a very big way by the government, also by the Law Society of Kenya, because even if you just search the internet, anything on TFGBV, you won't miss Kitanet. So they could partner with Kitanet and deliver. Kitanet could even deliver quarterly workshops. They could develop accessible online resource hubs with this case law, which Ivy made a reference to, which is missing, reporting guides for TFGBV, and also the best practices for these different practitioners. And we even have in this session, we have lawyers, we have journalists, they could contribute this information, and it could be a resource hub which could go a long way to addressing some of these issues. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. And your recommendations are highly noted, especially towards the different sectors you mentioned, inclusive of, institutions such as the Law Society of Kenya, to ensure that it is made mandatory to have continuous models in such institutions. Also to continuously have these studies so that this is not our last study, so that we continue doing so. As for KICTANET, we've been doing so in various capacities just to ensure we have publications, we have research works, which we are going to have the links there shortly in light of this topic. So you mentioned something about the Media Council of Kenya and what they need to do. And based on, I'm coming to you, Jacob, based on the study and, what can you recommend as Michael has recommended for us to have toolkits and measures, modules in the sector of CK, just to ensure that journalists are able to track TFGBV? Do you have comprehensive trainings? Are there, legal ways that MCK can come in to ensure that journalists, not only in the field, but the sectors of the universities, are able to be assisted? Jacob?
Thank you, Neema. I hope I can be heard. And I really appreciate the comments by Ivy and also Michael, the issues about reporting, and maybe just banking on what I said. I think the biggest issue around reporting is that, and as mentioned earlier, but you'll find that most people are not willing to report, and Michael also mentioned that because they don't feel like it's a really threat. The issues about TFGBV, and people shy away. And sometimes even when you go to the police, someone will ask you, what is it coming to report? For them, I think they're used to normal reporting about, thefts, and those big things that, they consider big things. But now when you look at the impact of TFGBV, I think it's very huge. And for me, I'll want maybe to just to help build the capacities for media and journalists in terms of how they report, because we run a safety desk at the Media Council of Kenya, where journalists can report any issues of attack. Will it be, physical? Will it be, emotional, attacks? And just so that they can be able to get support. But again, when you follow some cases when they're reported, you'll find there is that bit of, one, the issues about case management. Most cases are not reported. So once something is not reported, and when you go now to the courts, it's very hard to, one, provide evidence of that attack. People are not documenting, the bit of, the issues that, are happening to them. And that becomes very hard for, just the normal judicial system to take effect. So I think for us is just to strengthen the ability for media to report on such, giving them that space where they can be able to. We have a safety hotline where they can call. And I'll share it on the chat. They can easily call when they they face any kind of threats, will be physical or emotional, and we can be able to follow up with the relevant authorities. Now, apart from just following up on the issues about cases, we're able to also offer emotional support, get them a counselor to work with them during that period, help them to come to terms with the issues. And I think for me, it's just also the issues about literacy, building capacities for people to understand exactly if this is being happening to you, that you are able to identify exactly what is happening in terms of any attacks online, and you can be able to report it and follow through the normal ways. Either you want to get support, provide that support, or we want it, for us to go to the courts, can be able to support you in doing. So I think for as a council, that's what we're doing, just to ensure that as much as there is um, continuous support for our media, also people are able to get help going forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Jacob, for sharing that. And just don't leave yet, because we have one follow-up question in light of the Media Council of Kenya. And as you've highlighted, there is need of case management reporting, whereby, people need to, come to the front and report the cases, because with no evidence, there is no case. There's also the issue of more capacity building for the journalists, just to ensure that these cases are highlighted. And I'd just like for you to share your safety plan, hotline on the chat, so that in case there's a journalist here who wants to reach out, they can be able to do so and get assistance. So looking at these mitigations, I'd like to come back to Ivy and ask, from your experience, being a lawyer, in terms of what are the necessary skills that are needed? Are there skills needed for the victims to know? Are there skills needed for the lawyers to know in terms of reporting? And what practical, from your profession, ways can you offer to ensure that there is an improved and better done system when addressing the issues of TFGBV? Ivy?
Thank you. So I'd say one of the main ones is, number one, online safety skills. So for everybody. And then number two is just knowledge of the legal frameworks and reporting channels, because experience has shown that sometimes even the perpetrators of TFGBV didn't even know they are committing an offense. So for both the victim to recognize this is actually illegal, you cannot do this, and for the perpetrators, I think it would even be a preventative thing if they know you can't do this, and there's laws against that. And then also in terms of just like, and for researchers, trauma-informed responses, they're not just survivors, just for the sake of just getting, data from. These are real lived experiences. And then the biggest one is digital evidence handling, because many of the laws relevant to TFGBV are criminal. The threshold for evidence handling is, the threshold for evidence in criminal cases to prove a case is quite high, because it's beyond reasonable doubt. And yeah, because of that, that's how many times, even if you get, the reporting correct down the line, that could be an issue for, that could even get the case overturned, because it's already, that's the main problem, because the main problem was the evidence. And we had even engaged with some colleagues from ODPC, no, sorry, from DPP, my apologies. And that was the biggest issue. The issue was the evidence, so preservation and just handling it. Yeah, but sometimes you also find that because of the limited capacity of our law enforcement, even to enforce offline cases, now imagine now the digital, but then prayerfully we're getting, we're making progress.
Thank you, Ivy. Just don't go yet. You mentioned something on evidence preservation, and I would like to understand it from a point of the victim. How can the victim be able to provide accurate information when it comes to TFGBV? Like, can you give us a scope of what are the procedures, when I go to report a case, maybe the first stop will be a police station. So can you just take us through on what needs to happen so that, the people who are in this call can understand the procedure, because where we lack real real-time evidence to ensure that the case is taken in is where things start to go wrong also. So can you just guide us on what are the procedures for evidence?
Yeah, without going too much into it, like, okay, so for example, like for context, sometimes you find, if at all, because sometimes the issue is you don't even know who it is, but if at all, for example, you know who it is, you'd find sometimes maybe even the post was deleted or something like that. So taking a screenshot correctly, making sure you have the metadata, the time, the date, the URL, and then also, like, if you need to, because you can't just admit electronic evidence without like certain affidavits, and then what else can I say? Yeah, so just make sure you have at least a copy of uh the, I mean, if it's not like something that causes them trauma. Yeah, so just making sure you have the date, the time, the metadata, the URL, storage, have multiple copies because of just evidence handling. And then also you also find that it is also your responsibility as, no offense, but like, because of just the chain of custody, making sure you also a custodian of the evidence yourself, just in case of anything, because many things happen down the line, basically.
Yes, thank you, Ivy. And sorry to stick on your case, because now people have been reporting, people have been, doing a lot of things to ensure that the justice system takes up these cases. And one of the things we've discovered is that when victims report, are there any success stories that you've encountered in line of, the work you do in terms of TFGBV case that has been reported and finally it got to the last case and a victim got justice?
So what I always find interesting is, in terms of like what justice for a victim looks like, always varies. Because for some people, they want to report, they want to make it known. And for some people, like, they would settle it out of court, have it taken down. So yeah, there have been success stories of people who've reported and have had, whether it is a declaration of rights that, their rights were violated, or also monetary compensation, have them taken down. There definitely are success, because the channels and the avenues are there. The problem is just the reporting channels. You need to know it from the jump, from the time you go to the police station and they write down the charge sheet. Everything has to be in order, because otherwise it just gets struck out. Because as I said, some of these offenses even have imprisonment, and the court is not just going to just imprison people easily, because it's like the biggest one of the rights to freedom. I mean, is a big thing. So and some of the fines are hefty, like in the millions. So I would just say, in order to make sure that yours is also, well, the survivors experience the same, justice, quote unquote, from the beginning, from the date of the offense, proper documentation, uh, making sure that the charges are correct, yeah, and so on and so forth. It has to just be really meticulous.
Thank you, Ivy. It has to be really meticulous, is something we can go home with. And this is not something we can take lightly in terms of reporting. And I just want to mention what KickTanet we've been able to do as we come to the closing of this panel. So for Kictonet, we've been able to develop what Ivy said is needed for victims is evidence. So we do have a Swahili tip line, which I have shared on the chat. And we also have an OGBV tracker. Now, why are these two things important? Is because this is assisting us to have real-time based evidence. Just like Ivy mentioned, the screenshots are needed, the time is needed, the location is needed. And with these tip lines, our tip line and our GBV tracker, we've been able to do so. And in light of our works as well, we've had a collection whereby we call them lexicons, a lexicon which is a collection of words and terminologies. And we saw it fit to do so because over the years, we've seen that TFGBV happening online, especially in the online spaces, are not just happening in, the normal English. There's the Kenya local dialects that are there. And in terms of, what we identified during our lexicon research are the idioms, proverbs, and slangs which are being used to target women and girls through sexual objectification, colorism, and body shaming. And we did this in 6 languages, which is Ateso, Somali, Luya, Swahili, Luo, and Gikuyu. So those can be found. I've shared the links there. So just running back to my panel, and I want just to go on to Michael and ask him some, across these fields, as you've done your study, maybe you can just give us a brief of how the experience was while you were conducting this research and what stood out, because you can collect a lot of research, but there's just that one thing that stood out and needs to be addressed in line of TFGBV. Michael? And please share a bit of the experience you had during the collection of the research.
Thank you. In terms of my experience in conducting the research, there was a lot of enthusiasm, especially among the university students. And in most cases, we use the digital survey tool on either form. So you could find the class representatives, they could take screenshots of them sharing it on the WhatsApp groups of those specific classes. And you find that there was so much interest, especially from female students, to participate in the research. And they also requested that once it's published, we would also want to see the results and maybe with their respective universities. And what stood out for me is that in terms of the lecturers that were interviewed, you could find that majority of them, they have the option of incorporating it into the curricula, but there's not that necessity. If that's why I was even suggesting if it is made mandatory, it will be incorporated into the curriculum, because it cuts across some of the units of which they teach, and it will be really easy to incorporate it. So there's that interest to incorporate it into the curriculum, but just the way individuals work, you just have to make it mandatory. And bodies such as the Commission for University Education, they can just make TFGBV a mandatory course so that it's easily integrated into the curriculum. And that was for the lawyers too. There was also much interest. They would even want to share how they would handle such cases in terms of reporting to the law enforcement, the challenges they encountered. But what really stood out is the female respondents. They had so much interest in the research, and I could tell this could mean maybe they are largely the victims. So they would want to know what is really being done to address the issue under consideration. And what else? And one of the suggestions that was given by a lecturer that participated in the research, they said once the curriculum reviews are done, in most cases, it's done in isolation. There are these parties that are really important, like the Law Society of Kenya, we have the Media Council of Kenya, we have the lawyers, we have the journalists, they have the experiences, and they know how it manifests. And the way you mentioned the lexicon research that was done by Internet to show the different languages that are used, the slang, because it does not really manifest only in English or Kiswahili. There are different manifestations, and the damage is still the same or even worse. So one of the recommendations that stood out from the participants in the research lecturer was that there's that need of multi-stakeholder committee, even reviewing the curriculum. There's also that need for advocacy, maybe by internet and other bodies, so that there's funding for those curriculum reviews to integrate it, also involve the students, the gender advocacy, the activists, and all. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Michael. And just sharing that with us will also assist us for the next research that we've done at KICTANET, and this being a KICTANET research on exploring the education in law and journalism school curricula in Kenya. It's the first of its own. I can say that it's going to be it's going to be historical, and it's already historical since it's already on our website. Now, I'll just want to tell our audience that the publication link has been shared on the chat, and we are encouraging you to please, if you have a question, please feel free to ask on the chat as we come to the conclusion of this panelists of this panel. And please use the chat box. Please raise your hand for you to raise your voice to speak. And yeah, so coming to you, Jacob, having been in the media sector for very many years, and with your role right now, what can be, the way for the parting shot that you can give to ensure that, what comes out of this discussion is not only just theoretical, but also can be implemented by journalists and people in the other sectors as well?
Right. To start off, I think I'll say it's very important for us to encourage multi-stakeholder, engagement in terms of just sharing knowledge. I've noticed there is a lot of knowledge out here, but it's very little known especially to the media. So maybe finding ways on how we can be able to share the knowledge, especially the research that is done, what you've done in terms of our research, and in terms of the cases that we receive and what you've done with them. If that can be shared with another, organization that also is dealing with the same, like maybe lawyers who can be able to even give guidelines on how one can report and the guidelines. Even I think most journalists do not know how to report on, especially TFGBV. So very few are aware. I think for if we can work together, collaborations, partnerships, so that we can be able to enhance the voice of, and also encourage people to come out and speak out and share what they're going through online. That will be a very good bit. And also the issues about digital literacies amongst our stakeholders. And for this case, I'm looking at the media. In terms of just how do I identify this is an attack? Because in the report I've seen, many people do not even know that this is an attack. So how can we be able to identify or tell people identify that this is an attack? And if I'm attacked, this is the process that I need to follow. So some of those literacies are not within amongst our people. So finding ways on how we can be able to enhance those literacies, and also just opening up spaces where people can be able to report, freely, either anonymously, in terms of, where there is a threat, for example, witness protection, for example, those mechanisms, how can be able to, protect the people that, even whistleblowers, who have seen something and, they feel it's worth being, investigated or followed up, and being able to work in that space. So for me, those are the three things: a bit about digital literacies, building capacities for people to identify and report on TFGBV, sharing of knowledge, and finally, the issues about us working together in different capacities and also bringing those synergies together, making the space a good space for people to interact and share the issues. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jacob, for that. And, just before you leave, I am seeing a question from Zipporah. Oh, it's not really a question. I think I'm grateful for what KickTernet is doing on the issue of TFGBV. I'm speaking at a conference this afternoon, and we'll be sure to mention the check tip line. Thank you, Jacob. Just as you put it outright, there needs to be proper reporting mechanisms. There needs to be proper identification of attacks, followed by the processes. And the final thing you mentioned was on opening up the spaces, ensuring there's witness protection. And, I just want to pass it over to Ivy, who's been working in the High Court system for a very long time. Ivy, as you give us your closing remarks on this panel, maybe you can just highlight to us, is there a mechanism for witness protection of these victims as we try to conclude this panel? Ivy?
My apologies, please. Nima,
Okay.
please repeat.
All right, so we are talking about opening up spaces and ensuring there's witness protection, especially to the whistleblowers. And even though we have, certain mechanisms such as our Swahili tip line and our GBV tracker, and also what MCK has as their hotline, there's still not clear pathways of anonymity, and one can be a victim of, have reported, and it comes back to them. So are there some ways where we can protect the whistleblowers in line of the work you do, as you give us your closing remarks?
The government does have a witness protection agency, and also I know there's also other avenues through different non-governmental organizations through which victims can receive help and support if they need even what is it called, relocation for some time. There are avenues for witness protection, but yeah. Yeah. So in closing, I'm really grateful for the work that KickTernet is doing also in this, in terms of just like the 16 days of advocacy. These are some of the ways that we get the conversation going. We hear different opinions and we all continue to grow as a people in our community. And I'm just grateful to have been part of the panel. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Ivy, and we are grateful to have you here and for you just taking the time, to come and share with us what have you seen over the years and from the line of work you do. And just to mention, on our chat, we have a document that has been shared. It's that document for reimbursements of bundles used during this panel. Just a token of appreciation to our participants as well. So as we are concluding the panel with finally Michael, please, I call on to you to just get into the link and give us your details so that this can be done. So going to Michael. Michael, from the research, you've been a researcher for a very long time, especially in the ICT sectors in regards to policies. What can you, one recommendation that you can give to those who are researchers and upcoming researchers, and what can be the way forward in terms of you've done your research, so what happens next? Maybe you can give that to us. And this is the KickTernet research on ensuring that we explore the education sector in law and journalism curriculum in Kenya. And Michael, just come in and give us your closing remarks.
Thank you, Nemo. So my message basically to researchers is to continue the conversation on TFGBV. The more we make the noise, the likelihood of it being addressed. And this can be done by sharing even the instances. You can do publications on TFGBV and inform now the public and the general community, that is universities, the law, of its manifestations, as this, especially for researchers, as there's not much research on TFGBV, especially academic. So it's an area to look at critically. And for KitchenAid, I'd like to thank KitchenAid for the advocacy in terms of TFGBV, and I'm very, very appreciative to KitchenAid for continuing the conversation. And through such conversation, I believe years to come, maybe 6 months or years to come, such issues will no longer be critical. I think they'll be addressed in one way or the other. I believe those are my recommendations. And generally, just for integrating TFGBV in the curriculum, it should be made mandatory. That's the only way it can be addressed. The Commission for University Education should make it mandatory to study the university level, that is for law and journalism, and it should not be done in isolation. All parties need to be involved. The lawyers, the lecturers, the journalists, so that they can incorporate these lived experiences into the curriculum. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael, for that. And you're absolutely right. There's need for the curriculum to be implemented. And would you say it is possible to implement the same curriculum in the CBC, sector apart from the university? Will it be, a recommendation from you, Michael?
I believe so. I believe it's possible to even do it in the nowadays it's called even the competence-based education CBE. So it is it is very possible because even at I believe at we used to call it grade 6, students are taught about how such issues manifest, sexual health and everything. So it is very possible. Even if it is done earlier, the better, because we have to evolve with the realities. Because at even early age, at kindergarten, we have children using their phones, and they are likely to experience such. So it is that suggestion is valid. It should be done. So I believe it is a valid suggestion, and it's something that should be looked at. And in fact, it should be the next research that KitchenAid should conduct and see what can be done at the lower levels in terms of TFGBV integration. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yes, and I'm mentioning this because I know it starts from, the lower levels going upwards in light of implementations of such issues. I can see Jacob's hand is up. Jacob, you can just come in and speak.
Yeah, thank you, Nema. So there's a question that I've been asked between balancing between need to report on TFGBV and victims' privacy. Maybe I'll maybe respond to that, and as we close this, because I know maybe time is far much spent. So for journalists, they have a role to report on any issue, and in this matter, they have that responsibility to report any cases of TFGBV. But the code is very clear and explicit in terms of how to protect the victims, because unless it's within the public interest, then journalists should do all they can to protect the victims, and especially the victims. In this case, maybe children, underage children, between the ages below 18 years. There's need for them to protect the victims, and also if anyone feels, for example, maybe if the journalist reporting that story will jeopardize their security, and then journalists should do all they can to protect the victims and report objectively. So in this case, maybe blur out photos, images of the people, alter names, and do all that they can do to ensure that, yes, the issue is highlighted, and again, protecting the victims. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for making it clear on, how can victim protection be done. And also, as Ivy had mentioned, there's there's the protection sector at the government, whereby whistleblowers are also protected within the government systems. And yes, thank you for that. So I just want to mention again that we have our reimbursement form shared there with you, and for the bundles. Also, please feel free to follow us and join our mailing list, and follow us on all social media platforms at Kiktanet. We are on X, we are on Facebook, we are on LinkedIn, we are on WhatsApp, we are on TikTok, we're also on YouTube, where we provide the latest update, especially on such issues. And now I'm just trying to see if there's any other question. Maybe I can give one or two hands. Please free just to use the chat box. You can feel free to raise a hand so that the panelists can address your questions. Okay, as we wait for the questions to come in, we've also been able to share our research work on the chat box. There is this research work, and it's downloadable on any device. You can be able to access it. Also, there's a participant by the name Stanley Wamangu. Sorry if I've said it wrong. Wamangu. He's saying he really appreciates he will appreciate any stories of women building tech, stroke digital solutions around TFGBV to feature their stories. Please feel free to reach out to him. In light of this, he also is appreciative of Kiktanet's work on this TFGBV report, and also the issue of lexicons, as we had shared earlier. So I'm just trying to see. Yes, thank you, George. Thank you, George, for letting us know. Thank you for appreciating this webinar as well. And just to mention, this is not the final webinars that we're going to do. And in light of this, I like to mention it is part of how we are ending our 16 days of activism, that we have been really trying to ensure that we do spread the message out there that this is part of an ongoing initiative, in our case at Kiktanet. And as we close, I'd like to thank all of you for being available to come in. Special thanks to our panelists being able to clearly advocate and to ensure that we do try to get solutions towards what we are doing. So I'm not sure if there's anyone who has not seen the form for the reimbursement. So I've shared it again. Just ensure you are able to access it. And we do thank you for coming in to this discussion on exploring TFGBV, our launch on exploring TFGBV education in law and journalism school curriculum. I wish you all a great day. Thank you.